Hello and welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Very excited, distinct pleasure to have Sam Blan here with us on the show today. Longtime friend, have partnered on projects together over the past 6 or more years, and co-founder and CMO of Systems 9. Sam, glad to have you here. Thanks for being on.
Jason, thanks for having me, man. And it's been a pleasure to be with you for several years now, working on tons of projects. So exciting.
Absolutely. Now, was hoping you could dive into your story. When I first met you, you were deep in the entertainment industry and moving into crowdfunding, but I know it starts further back than that. Could you give the audience a bit of a glimpse of who you are?
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Chicago. First generation. My family always wanted me to excel in every area of life, as a lot of expat parents do. So my dad, a little bit more forward thinking, had two choices for me, either attorney or baseball player. He loved baseball when he moved here. To his chagrin, I did neither and came to the film industry. In 2007, I moved to LA, but I was writing screenplays. Right after college, I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana. We ended up raising, a small seven-figure raise. Made my first movie in Louisiana with an old business partner. Didn't know what the heck we were doing, and realized that I needed to sort of jump into the space from the business aspect. Became director of acquisitions of a company called Spotlight Pictures. Worked with another company called Strategic Film Partners, which was located at Universal Studios. And then I had a title of director of acquisitions and co-productions, and basically putting film deals all around the world. It was a very cushy job in a lot of ways. I got to go to every festival, Cannes and Sundance and Dubai and Australia. But after a while, you start working on things you don't really care about, and as a lot of people in the industry get jaded by a lot of things, and you work with some people, and I'm not going to mention any names, that are not exactly the most scrupulous individuals either. By 2015, I had an old friend who convinced me. I met him on a film panel, and he said, "Hey, we're doing this crowdfunding thing. The Jobs Act has been passed, so it's changing the rules with the SEC for the first time in 80 years. I know you're looking for a change, et cetera, et cetera." Came on board there, and within the first couple months at their company, we raised $6 million for an electric bike, which was insane, and that's about the time you and I met, Jason, a little bit before that.
Right.
And I realized that, it was an exciting time. Learned a lot. I started my first company, again, very green, didn't know a lot of the ins and outs administratively that you should know, and these failures oftentimes, as we know, really build your character and build you as a person. I'm happy to say in the first year of our company, we did over $1 million in revenue. But you also have to understand, if you're doing $1 million, you don't be spending $1.5 million or whatever the case may be, right? I mean, so that was a good learning lesson there with the crowdfunding days. I also think that it was early enough in that space, as you know, I know you're still working in it as well, where the rules that at its inception of the Jobs Act were only the starting point. And as always, when you have these new sort of paradigms, you really are waiting for it to evolve to, once you see what's going on in the space or in the marketplace. But I had gotten the Bitcoin white paper in 2016, and I heard about Bitcoin in 2012. I think I was on my way to Cannes, and I was like, digital money, you got to be joking, So I wasn't really paying attention to that. And then again, somebody mentioned it in 2015. I took a little bit more liking to it. And I finally, when I read the white paper in 2016, and let me go back a little bit. My mom's been a computer science teacher for over 30 years. I grew up with a computer, like from a little kid. I actually started off as a computer science major and realized, I was taking Java and C++ classes, and I didn't want to be in a dungeon, as I called it, with no sunlight, working in front of a computer. Hindsight, it's 2020. I'm working in front of a computer all the time now. So after I read the Bitcoin white paper, I was hooked. I was like, this is something that is going to revolutionize the world. The theory behind it, the white paper behind it. So I started researching more and more, investing in certain things, and met my two partners, co-founders, and literally out of my loft in downtown LA, we'd have meetings. We'd meet at Shutters in Santa Monica. We'd have meetings at wherever we could at the time. Got a little bit of seed funding, built a ton of different pieces of software. And I'll go into more of the story in a little bit, but suffice to say, over 3.5 years in, and we're looking pretty good.
Fantastic. And I know you're being modest about that as well too. And there's more to come in terms of what Systems 9 will be doing, and around sentiment and growth within the industry, of course. I could say working in blockchain and cryptocurrency, there's been a lot of elements of hurry up and wait and excitement in 2017, 2018 that then led to more of a bear market in many perspectives that slowed down projects, notably. So I know there's been a long road to get here, and coming from crowdfunding and taking crowdfund principles, looking at how audiences can produce in small windows of time. We're certainly seeing that here this year in 2021 and last year in 2020 with retail investors and how they're participating in the market. I guess the larger question is, what does Systems 9 do? How can we...
Jason, it's System 9, no S at the end. Just wanted to clarify that. System 9. My co-founder, is one of the most ethically, morally amazing individuals I've ever met. He spent 20 years at the Chicago Board of Trade. He's a Chicago boy like myself. And, I think I put it in the last newsletter, the newsletter passed, that when he was on the trading room floor, obviously everyone's seen people arbing and doing all the different hand signals and all that type of stuff. And so a lot of it was all based on trust and respect for one another, right? So at the end of the day, when you came to settle up, if you had a losing trade, you got to fess up to it, because if you didn't, that'd be probably your days are numbered on the trading room floor. They approached me because both Pete and Ryan, my other co-founder, had been in the space for now going on 6-7 years. Collectively, they have over 20 years in blockchain cryptocurrency. I think they both read the Bitcoin white paper in 2011 or 2012. And when they approached me, it's so funny because all our personalities are so different. And that's what's amazing about it. Even the team now that's expanded, there's 7 of us that are strong, plus our developers, plus everyone else. The conglomeration of those personalities and how we all kind of work together when we all come from different walks of life speaks to, I think, our success. And when Pete and Ryan approached me, I think they needed assistance in the operational stuff and making sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. I'm not a trader by nature. I never finished my computer science degree, even though I can code on a very light level. I can understand it, and I have a modicum of understanding across the board of everything that we do. But one of the great things about that is being sort of the dumbest person in the room. Often allows me to ask the question so that it can be explained to me, so I can explain it to others, right? So as the current CMO, our verbiage should always point to that. But back to your original question, a lot of the things that Pete used to dream about when he was on the trading room floor, he's like, wow, if I could replicate myself, I can do so many things, actually came into fruition with this technology, right? So the promise of it and what we can do, and we are a picks and shovels infrastructure foundational piece of the entire ecosystem. That's what we are. We're not a token, we're not this, although we have a lot of great future milestones that we're thinking about. But these pieces of software, especially the early days, we're all about figuring out how to optimize how money moves, right? How to optimize bringing dead money to life. There's all this dead money that sits everywhere, not being put into use. And this technology now allows us and affords us that ability to be able to do so. So I think that was one of the main driving factors to building the things that we built. But yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and I've been privileged to some of the numbers. Fantastic work that the technology is doing over at System 9 and everything the team has put together. I've had the team at our offices and been lucky enough to see some of the whiteboard discussions take place and what it is that you guys are building. How does the market play a role in that? Obviously, there's been massive fluctuations from, let's say, May 2020 to May 2021 here as we're closing out. How has that played as part of that dynamic?
Yeah, well, I think that, take a step back, right? So the buildup of 2016 and 2017, these huge swings, and in the last newsletter, I basically put together, sort of a chart that I grabbed from CoinMarketCap that show the actual dips of Bitcoin, as it were. On average, it's 50% plus drops, right? And this volatility, I think, is due to it being such a nascent industry. And a lot of people are like, well, if this is going to be an asset class or this is going to be this, that, and the other, it needs to become more stable, which we agree. And by the way, we've actually built pieces of software that that basically can take out the volatility risk. It's patent pending. We worked on some of these other things. Those are the tools and infrastructure pieces that we're building. One of the things that I would say that as a challenge is that the internet, which is the information paradigm, was built for 20 years in secret. Nobody knew really that the internet was built. All the iterations that led to us being able to dial up and actually get on the internet, which the generation today has no idea what that was like, being at home and being, my mom picking up the phone and just completely destroying my connection.
Mid-page.
Yeah, so that those types of things we don't tend to think about. Now that we have this information paradigm, the internet, everything that we're building from VR, AR, all the tech companies, and including blockchain and cryptocurrency, is under a microscope because we have that information paradigm. And as you know, and as a lot of people know, unfortunately, fake news is prevalent. There's a lot of hearsay, a lot of different stuff. But I kind of enjoy the fact that we can look at every single nook and cranny in the space, and we can determine why things are. And that's the whole promise of it, right? This consensus of individuals being able to participate in this space. And there's no excuse anymore not to learn, right? You can go on YouTube, you can go on a number of places. So I do believe that we're going to see a shakeup in the next 5 to 10 years of which projects are going to be the most valuable. Just like we did in the internet, just like the .com boom and all that, and bust, subsequent bust after that. But we are still pretty much building the airplane as we're sort of taking off, kind of thing, right? And a lot of people will say to me, well, there's no use cases and there's no this and there's no that. Well, that's actually not true. We fortunately have a very stable, or mostly stable, financial infrastructure in the West, the United States, Europe, etc. But you go to places like Venezuela or places in Africa or Southeast Asia, they do not. They have to. Some of them have to carry backpacks of bills just to have breakfast, right? So when inflation reaches these ridiculous levels, this is where this technology kind of comes into play, and this is where you're seeing the use cases come into play. And I equate these tokens and coins not as if they are just things to be traded or whatever. I look at them as like their own pieces of stock. Each company is a company, and their stock goes up and down based on the use case and its proliferation around the world. One of my favorite projects, for instance, is XLM, Stellar Lumens, right? They are a nonprofit. They just signed a deal with Visa. They are in multiple countries, and that's just the beginning for them. And there's many projects like that. I think what people get lost in is like, okay, Bitcoin, the originator. What does Bitcoin even do, right? How do we create money? And then other projects such as Ethereum, all these other things, like people still need to understand how they work, but it may not necessarily ever be something that you see in front of you. When you pick up your phone, there are 7 layers of protocol below everything to allow you to press that button. You don't know what they do, but nor should you have to. So that's the promise eventually that we will get to, and we are hopefully one of those companies that will be here for the long haul to help build and bridge the different paradigms that exist around the world.
100%. And I love how you say around the world. My eyes were opened up to that doing conferences internationally and going to remote places in Europe, Asia, talking to other speakers or just attendees who were telling me about the situations and even in some of the markets that you mentioned and how drastically different they are than here in the US, which we're most familiar with. And how necessary and needed these technologies are for long-term growth, long-term contribution from all of these different parties involved, as you're mentioning here. And to paint the picture a bit further for System 9 and your role over there, what does marketing look like for you guys? What are some of your initiatives and the tools which you're using to deliver those?
Yeah, so we built a number of pieces of software, and as we were mentioning before we started the call, finding product market fit is it's like finding gold, right? You're just so excited that what you built over the years finally it has use cases and has use cases for the entire ecosystem. We are essentially, when it comes to marketing, there are about, if you go to CoinMarketCap, I think there are like 10,000 plus tokens listed, right? Which is insane.
Oh yeah.
Right? There's no way all of these are going to survive. A lot of people know that a lot of them are scams. A lot of them are not exactly moving the ball forward. Don't get me into Doge or any of these other projects, right? The speculative ones. But for us, it's finding the strongest of these projects and helping them understand, or basically outsource to us all their market making activities. So our market making software, which is Pete's brainchild and built by our amazing CTO, is the foundational piece that we will be able to build and bolt on other pieces to. And when it comes to the marketing, a lot of our marketing at this point and our success has been all organic. Our COO Josh has been a beast in basically closing client after client. Our head of business development, Mark Ornstein, has been amazing as far as giving us that extra credibility and whatnot. So we're going through a Series A where we've entered due diligence with a number of entities. Our numbers we're blowing past our numbers every month. Once we complete this round, we're really going to start putting together a robust marketing strategy. Since we're still B2B mostly, working with our clients, we're not going to necessarily need to be on all the outlets right away. But I think it's a major disservice. Like for instance, Pete, our CEO, is not, when speaking on CNBC or Bloomberg or one of these other outlets, because his even-keeled approach to the marketplace, even-keeled approach to the industry and the space really needs to be heard. Right? We're not Bitcoin maximalists. We don't believe the U.S. dollar is not going to exist in 20 years. In fact, we really believe that these other technologies are going to bolster up all the currencies and be able to flow them in a much healthier manner. So my role is not only just the internal and external communications as we grow, but making sure that our processes and our SOPs are in place. I think to your point, that the title of this podcast is how to get to that next level, how to grow, and so we're sort of at that point, at that juncture now after finding product market fit.
100%. SOPs, making it replicatable, the long journey to get to product market fit, but what the focuses are and how they change from there. And I know how hard yourself, Pete, Josh, I know you're mentioning Mark, other team members as well, have strived to get there. I recall your passion in working on crowdfunding campaigns in the past and some late nights
Yeah, we did.
determining what do we need to do to pivot this, to get it to a point of effectiveness, and being able to put together success there. Some of the largest reward campaigns I've worked on, my team, have still been stuff we've worked together for years back. So that's what I envision in the background in your offices,
Well,
figuring
it's
all this
insane
out as the
because a
market
lot of our
changes.
clients, yeah, Jason, a lot of our clients are in Asia. A lot of our clients are not in the United States. And
Sure.
so, a couple weeks ago, we had a crazy 48 hours, specifically Pete, who's also the lead trader, right?
Hmm.
It was an Australian company. So we launched at 3 in the morning Pacific Standard Time.
Of course.
And because of the way social media works now and et cetera, there was a situation where the price shot up. So Pete pretty much didn't sleep for 48 hours. We actually even had like a watch party on Wednesday night because he was going for almost 24 hours, and it was one of our best. Probably this is what has made our month so successful. It was one of the best situations that we can see ourselves in, and we oftentimes find ourselves in because we, as a company, always look to maximize the opportunities that we have with our clients. So, our job as market makers is to make sure that there is stability. Orders in each side of the order book to keep the spreads tight. But when you have volatility like you had this last weekend, and the prices is dropping, I mean, you have to be on top of that, right? You have to, otherwise your spreads become so wide that you're not getting hit on anything. And so, with us having success with building our clients, and a lot of our clients now are coming back to us. We have a very, very amazing value prop that I think is adding to our success. And our customer service, I think, Josh does an amazing job of really treating our clients like partners. That's the way we look at them. They're our partners. And so we, an average contract for us is 3 years. And you're finding a lot of our clients now are not only, they start off with one or two pairs, and they give us, anywhere from 50,000 to, $1 million plus, depending on the client. And as we do a good job for them, they're like, can you please do this pair? Can you do this pair on this exchange? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? And they give us more responsibility. So, it's a good problem to have, I suppose. But the challenging part is, definitely need to get Pete more help on the trading side, especially as we grow. Now we're at about 30 clients or so. I think we have about 12 million assets under contract. Not all of our clients are activated. Once they're all activated, we're going to be above 20 million. I mean, we have ambitious goals for the year, but like I said earlier, we're literally hitting our metrics month after month, ahead of schedule a month. And I guess it really comes down to the team, and it comes down to the value prop, and it comes down to all of us rowing in the same direction. And that's, I think, the most important aspect of any company, is that you row in the same direction. You do what you have to do. I wear many hats, right? I don't. If you need me to write an email for somebody, or help somebody out with just contract negotiation, or whatever the case may be, I have, thankfully, that skill set over the years to be able to interject wherever I'm needed. And for me, that's what you want. And I think the whole team is kind of that, in that manner. Whatever we need, we got each other's backs, which is an amazing feeling.
Oh yeah, aligned vision, ability to roll up the sleeves, that commitment, whatever's needed, we're going to get it there, and showing up in the numbers. I mean,
Yeah.
the only way to measure is with these type of metrics, and the fact that you have that much under management, that high in assets already, the quality and caliber of groups that you're working with in this market making, the effectiveness of the system, it's all there. It's all resonating, and when I think of who you guys work with, I imagine it's exchanges, tokens. I know in the past there were some investors, but now it's these larger institutional groups. How do discussions change? How are Josh's client, white glove service type communications these days, and how has that played a role in your growth?
Yeah, so I think the most recent newsletter, which you're able to read all our past newsletters, by the way, on our website, speaks to a new article that Pete came out with, the case for multiple market makers. As many people know, for you to go public or IPO on Wall Street, you need contracts with a few market makers before you can even list. The last thing anybody wants is a a marketplace with, very little volume and no trades and et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
So I think, from that aspect, the conversation has shifted slightly. I mean, we're not leaving the core of what we're doing because of this product market fit that we have found. We're sort of trying to replicate it across the board. We believe, let's say again, I made the comment that there was 10,000 plus tokens on CoinMarketCap. Let's cut that in 2/3. Let's say a third of those are potential clients. Of our competitors in the space, there's probably, a good half a dozen to a dozen, right? And they work on all different capacities. Some of them, or most of them, only concentrate on the top 10, top 25 by market cap, right? That's their business. They do a lot of prop trading, et cetera, et cetera. For us, it's almost finding those diamonds in the rough. Obviously, we have the bigger clients as well, the bigger exchanges, and that we're contracted with. But what's I think, at least for me, what I find most rewarding is that when we do have one of these smaller issuers, being a part of their growth. Even in our deck, we have a case example where we took a client that when they were signed up with another market maker who was engaging in wash trading, which is obviously not cool. And what happened was, as soon as we took over, the numbers just dropped off a cliff. And we were able to rebuild the order books. We were able to really help bring that company back into a position where now they're handing us over 10 more pairs, right? Because of the great job that we've done over the last several months. So for us, the conversation is, how do we go back to our current clients and help them grow? We even, we do for free consulting on getting them on further exchanges, which they very much appreciate. We have a lot of, we're connected to about 25 exchanges right now. Over the years, I was one of the ones that first started signing corporate accounts with different exchanges, but now, the team, Josh, Mark, everyone else, they're closing those deals. And so for us, it's like, okay, there are all these clients or these potential clients that are sitting there, and they need our service, but a lot of them are very astute developers, but they may not necessarily have the financial background and understand why they need a market maker. They don't understand why no one's coming to their markets, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a little bit of education. So we're definitely taking that stance, and this is, doing this podcast with you and starting to write more articles, and I'm pushing everybody to be thought leaders. I think that's where the conversations it needs to go. I feel like for us, putting ourselves out there, speaking to what we do well, what we don't know, not mincing words, being extremely transparent with how the company is growing, has played really, really well for us, and we want to continue doing that.
Transparency is key, and having that relatability from upper management, putting in the effort for thought leadership and sharing insights, rising tides lift all ships, and the need for more multiple market makers being such a huge factor in there. And just trust. Not everyone trusts what they read on the internet, let alone the blockchain and cryptocurrency worlds. Exactly. and how many headlines are shared that aren't real to begin with. So I think more communication, more trust throughout the industry just makes it that more of a productive process for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think you hit that. That's a very important point, Jason, that I want to reiterate. We have to we acted as if we were regulated from day one, right? The last thing we want to do is come be a part of, we have an amazing internal counsel, our chief legal officer, Ken Stein. He has come on board to really make sure that we're protected in every single manner. It's acting as if, right? Because if we want this industry to grow, then we need to be the ones that are spearheading the efforts, and we need to lead by example. And I think that has really played well for us too, because we know what we're talking about, and if we don't have the answer, we're very forward with that, and we're happy to go research and do the things that we need to do. Our research team heads and shoulders, which is great as well, because you got to remember, as I mentioned, we're paving the road as we drive on it, right? So we need to make sure, is there an interchange coming up? Is there regulation coming through? Is there, the hackers are getting more sophisticated, so we have to take that into consideration. I've been susceptible to hacks. multiple times, and unfortunately, a couple times successful against the space, successful against our clients, successful against even my girlfriend. Had money taken out of her MetaMask. So unfortunately, we're still in this nascent space, and these entities are getting very intelligent as to how to like trick people. But as long as we can continue taking out the pain points and the single point of failures, which is what this technology is why it's so valuable, I think we'll be in a better position, going forward.
Absolutely. And there's so many misconceptions when you talk to more mainstream audiences about it. That's why the messaging is so important.
Absolutely.
That's why,
Absolutely.
breaking this down in a way that the audience can absorb and be able to repeat can be such a large determining factor.
Yeah.
And what recommendations do you have out there for founders in the space who are looking for their launch path? Whether it's marketing, whether it's just operationally, you talked about how important these systems such as SOPs are. What should they be testing out? What should they be looking to implement?
Yeah, I guess in the space specifically, if they are a token or coin offering or whatnot, I think that having a robust, obviously the most important thing is having a robust white paper, right? Something that people can turn to. And unfortunately, a lot of these white papers are just carbon copies of other white papers, right? So
Right.
That's where I would start first, is to make sure that your white paper is something that I can look at or anyone can look at and say, wow, they have a good value prop here. Is it very ambitious? For instance, like Cardano has some of the smartest minds. ADA has some of the smartest minds in the world working on it. It's very ambitious, but kudos to them. That's great. Let's see if they can get these, get it to become something that's useful for society. So I would say, once you start with the white paper, the other aspects and I learned this early on, ask for help.
Yes.
If you have to ask for help. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. So you have to be able to be humble enough to say, hey, I don't know this. I don't know what I should be doing. Can you help me? I also look at like the sort of framework of any company. What is it made up of, right? You got the finance arm, the legal arm, you've got the sales and marketing, you've got all these different things. And then you and I come from sort of marketing backgrounds too. And a lot of times marketing is done in hindsight, which is not the way to be building things, right? And that was part of when we did crowdfunding, and even going back to the film industry, pre-production leads to a good production, which leads to a good post-production, right? If you don't have a good pre-production, the rest of it's going to be a shit show, right? So that's important. I think that's the same thing here before any launch of any token or any coin. And a lot of them, because they don't have that background in marketing, et cetera, developers, and again, they're some of the smartest people around building these blockchains, but they don't have an eye towards, okay, maybe we should do a better job of explaining what this does. Maybe we should do a better job of putting pieces out there that kind of explain. And that's what I've, at least personally, been trying to spearhead at System 9, is to be able to have those pieces that speak to everything. I even cajoled my legal counsel Ken and Mark, and I was like, guys, I need an article out of you. Like, I want to see something that you guys are. When I talk to you, you guys have so many great things to say. I'm happy. I've been a writer since I was in 3rd grade. I've had screenplays option. I'm like, give it to me. Clean it up. I will make sure you look good, and we'll make sure that your thoughts are gotten across. Back to it's a major disservice if people don't hear from you, because you do have so many great things to say and so many great things to add. And I think there's always a little bit of a hesitancy when it's not your forte of what you do. For me, the same thing. Like when we're on our calls and Noah, our amazing CTO, goes into talking about what he's building and all that, I sometimes have to stop and ask, hey, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? And it's fine. Like it's okay for you to ask those questions. So any founder, anybody launching something, ask questions, ask and ask and ask. And those people who really are tied to you wanting to be successful will help you.
Yeah, and you've always been a standout in building teams, noticeably. Seeing in the crowdfunding agencies, hearing what you were doing in the entertainment space, which man, that's such a premium industry. Every time you're able to reference, your screenwriting, it's like, okay, that's a big game. I like everything going on there. Maybe just as an LA native, but
Yeah.
it's something I've always looked up to. But
Well,
building the
that's
right
why I
team.
moved from Chicago. So, it's like,
Exactly.
yeah,
But that's such an important piece. Like you mentioned, you couldn't do what you're doing without Pete, without Josh, without the trading, without the tech, without the customer service. Wear a lot of hats, but bring in the right areas of expertise, ask the right questions. It's such a huge factor. I've even campaigns where having the audience and the B2B clients giving feedback, and that shapes it. Ask as much as you can.
right. No, I couldn't agree more. And that's really, we've created a space where, we're excited about all the developments, but we take the time to speak to one another. And, we'll continue bringing in other experts. I was listening to Redpoint VC's communication seminar, just because if there's anything I haven't known about how to communicate better. I even read an article because both Josh and Noah are Gen Z, and I wanted to make sure that I communicate to them in a way that is hearing them, and that is, for me, important that they hear me in the right kind of manner. And I give them the best feedback, and they give me the best feedback. On a weekly basis, I'm working with one of our early supporters just to help build some of that collateral. What does that look like? What does our culture deck look like? Our culture documents look like? How are we going to have events in the future once we're allowed to have events, which I think very close. We're about to be done with this crazy last year and a half. Those are important aspects. People don't think about, for you to have a well-running machine, and I always like to use the analogy for myself, I'm not necessarily any of the cogs in the machine. I'm that oil in that machine that helps it run more smoothly. That's the way I've always been, because I just don't enter into any conversation with any kind of agenda. I don't have an ego towards things. I don't necessarily care. Like I want you to be the best. I want to empower you to be the best. I don't need to be in the spotlight. I don't need to be any of those things. I want what we do to speak for itself, and I want the people around me to be empowered to be doing the best that they can be doing.
And teams produce the largest results, in my opinion, and just fascinated with success. I know a lot of other thought leaders say that, but as you're saying, whatever we can do to support in hitting the highest milestones. I like how you bring up conferences as well too, because when I think of cryptocurrency, digital asset marketing, you got the white paper. Not as many Satoshi nine pagers out there as many, as often these days. But I like it starting with the white paper, community, with real dialogue. I could mention a list of marketing channels we put in for a content marketing funnel and traffic drivers, but conferences are that historical piece. I know they're picking back up, BTC Miami, a lot happening in Dubai and other parts of the world. Has it been limiting or hindering for you guys at all with the hands tied over the past year?
No, it's been the opposite actually. So as a startup, and I'm so grateful for the last year. Quick anecdote. By the end of 2019, I didn't know that if we were going to make it, like any startup, right? I thought this was going to be, I've had my successes. I thought this was just going to be another one that I chalked up to another failure, and that I was going to learn from it and hopefully, come out stronger. And so, we had two VC firms. In order to save money, I went to live in Oaxaca, in Mexico for several months, and met some amazing individuals, some of like people from, that are very high up and on Shark Tank Mexico and all that. So I had really a good time working down there and being able to learn from that. But like any startup, and to your point, going to these conferences, and I remember in the film industry, I mean, when we went to Cannes, it's very expensive, as you can imagine, right? Like you're there for several days, 10 days. You have your booth build out, all the flights, all the hotels. We would rent apartments on the Quasad. You do all these different things. That, unless you have already the sort of the cash flow to do these things, it's very hard. It's very hard to travel to every single festival and every single market. Thankfully, during those days, based on our work, I was actually flown out to the Melbourne International Film Festival twice, and that was amazing because that was some of the perks that existed with doing a good job. But with System 9, we had a limited amount of budget. I think you interviewed one of our good friends personally, Brad Yassar, and who's been in the space since 2009, 10, he's going to the Miami Bitcoin conference next week and all that, and he has a whale pass, but that's pretty expensive, right? So that obviously is limiting to startups. So for us, when Corona hit last year, it sort of equalized the playing field, right? Josh actually got an award from Consensus last year for most meetings booked and taken, like completely.
I heard about
So
this.
yeah, so he was able to literally, basically, have, I think he had 300 meetings on the books, and I think he had one no-show out of it. I mean, to get that award is just a testament to his dedication. And so, extrapolate that over the course of the next several months, we're in every room. We're having conversations of every conference, every Zoom call. Everyone's sort of stuck at home, so this was it was really helpful when we closed one of our first market making clients in May, June of last year. That ended up just snowballing after that. So, I know a lot of people are hurting after the last year, and my heart goes out to them. So we're very grateful that we were able to find the traction that continue on, a year and a half later.
Oh yeah, and I really measure good marketing talent by good problem solving abilities. So you guys took this issue that everyone was encountering of, hey, we can't go to physical conferences, and you said, how do we really use these digital tools, and just cranked away. I mean, to get an award for most meetings, to see that turn into market making clients, which I imagine have, a strong average value to them, it says a lot. And again, the creativity, because I've heard different perspectives on the digital conferences. And to our conversations about it, am a fan of them, because you can go to multiple in a day that are in different parts of the world. You could search the directories for the exact individuals that you want to speak to, can have the follow-ups, everything's set up there. And that's right, I have not heard anyone with that same success metric that you guys have.
Yeah, no, it's been wonderful. I mean, it kind of comes down to, again, I think Josh, Noah, these kids, these guys are godsends for us. They're amazing individuals, and they work very hard, and it shows. This is why we're here.
Absolutely. And I want to move away from success just for a second, as entrepreneurship is not all success, and move into the optimization recommendations. We've all done things that haven't worked in one way, shape, or form. How have you guys addressed it at System 9? How have you personally perceived items that need further optimization, whether it's moving more of what's working well into priority, or pivoting and looking how to manage things to a point of effectiveness?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think when Josh and I, to this day, still have weekly calls one-on-one, right? We've set up the calendar in a way, and now I'm having weekly calls with Noah, our CTO, one-on-one. I'm trying to remove every single obstacle out of their way, So as somebody who's sort of also spearheading processes for the company, it's looking at all the different things as far as organizational aspects are concerned. And thankfully, I'm super OCD. I have color-coded folders and mailbox at 0 and all these different things. So that not everybody is like me, but you should find someone hopefully that kind of speaks to that organizational aspect, that can find things in a heartbeat and procure them. But it's more than just that. It's also when these guys are running and gunning, they don't really have the time to organize it or to optimize the way that they're doing things, putting things into spreadsheets or putting things into ways that the information's easily gleaned, etc. What they do have time for is to continue staying in the lane that they're in and continue building on the success that they have. So I think it goes back to removing impediments for the team members that are driving the ball, I guess, that's the best way I can put it. So that can be everything from creating multiple folders in Google Drive, having the one-on-one calls and check-ins, having the stand-up calls, having an agenda to those calls, right? So, I took painstaking efforts to have, like, on our Monday call that we have with all the team members on it, to have it, outlined and scheduled, that we stick to it, and it's done really well for that. Yeah, sometimes we digress here and there. I mean, we're human, it happens, it's all good, and you got to leave room for that too. That's important, right? At the end of the day, you need to connect with each other as humans. So, but optimization means that you're knowing yourself and knowing what you're bringing to the table, and then you're knowing where the pain points are necessarily. And I've been a fan of methodologies like the EOS method, and talking about how to be accountable. Creating an accountability chart, creating KPIs, creating things that, like, can speak to how do we optimize these things in a manner that flows. And I think that's one of the most important aspects.
Manner that flows, having that consistency. Love how you're putting in EOS and these other types of ideologies behind it to make things more effective. I've been reading more about decision making and putting probability rankings, how realistic something is to happen, not just using the top lines for it, but really drilling down to the facts and determining the next course from there.
Absolutely. And I think, to add to that, you have to be willing to refine, right? I always say that all our documents are living documents. You have to have them where you present them, you iterate, people come back and comment, you present it again, you iterate, new information comes in, and that will affect how you operate in some aspects, and you iterate again. And that's what you have to be willing to do. I mean, people feel sometimes, well, we made this document, it's set, it's done, this is how we do things. Well, okay, good for now, but what happens when XYZ occurs, or that happens, or new input comes in? You can't be married to any of this. You have to be able to be flexible. I think startups, and in this day and age, being flexible is absolutely paramount to optimization, right? Is to understand, how do we stay ahead of the curve? How do we look at, like, the aspects of what we've built already, and how can we continually evolve them as new information comes in?
No ego, humbly, what are the best steps based on this information that is coming in? How do we be flexible?
Yes.
Absolutely. What happens when you think of the word scale? Are there any insights, recommendations, examples, or even just perspectives that you could share on how projects scale?
So I think when you're looking to scale, you're basically asking yourself, okay, so obviously you had product market fit at this point, right? So you're having the traction that you're having. What do you need to do going forward that will accelerate what you've already done? And I think it really comes down to systems. Systems being put in place that allow for, again, going back to the obstacles or impediments that are in place, and removing them in that sense. So, getting more traders on board, having dedicated infrastructure that speaks to the different clients and how to operate with that. I think being able to having a robust marketing program, right? Speaking to that, looking for the right kind of clients. I think the research team is going to come into play heavily going forward, right? Because they're going to be able to see things ahead of time. They're going to be able to see things going forward, and then we're going to be able to ask ourselves, what is it that needs to be done in order for us to scale properly? What is it that needs to be done that will optimize, going back to the optimization of the impediments, moving them out of the way, and all that type of stuff. So I think the most important thing for scaling is system. You need to have something that you can replicate over and over and over again, with an eye, and the management team has to have an eye towards factors that are going to be changing in the next 3 months, 6 months, year, etc. These days, it's hard to see things out more than 2 years, maybe. But being able to be clear about that, having goals for 5 and 10 years is also important. We do have that. We do talk about our future milestones, but to scale properly is to be able to make sure that everybody's empowered within their lane to be able to execute.
System scale, everyone's empowered, working towards set milestones, 3 years, 5 years. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Have these measurements, have them push you and be confronting. That way you take those extra steps to scale the systems to get there.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And I think there's a little more nuance to that, but I think that that's a good foundational aspect of scaling. I think going back to finding the experts, right? Once you have the revenue and you can actually put some funds towards bringing experts to help with that, I think that becomes a very important aspect to it. Putting together, this idea of how do we optimize again for rapid scalability, and it comes to having the right people giving you the right advice at the right time.
Right people, right advice, right time, rapid scalability. Love it. And these are the questions we get asked the most, is how do we hit these grandiose goals, this market share, this volume of market cap or liquidity. And really it's the systems that you take to get there.
With flexibility.
Yes. Got to be able to change it and do whatever's required to get there. And Sam, this has been such a helpful session here. I'm going to have my team listen in and even take notes on it. Going to share it with the few people we're having conversations with. Do you have any final thoughts, any final recommendations, whether it's brief or, just something that we haven't got into yet, anything you want to leave listeners with?
Yeah, I just want them to have an open mind. I think too much these days, we're so ready to scrutinize everything. We're so ready to poo-poo it in such a way that's not really healthy. I've seen this ridiculous polarization of our society in such a unfortunate manner. And I think that's why I call myself a hardcore moderate. I do believe in the yin and yang, and I do feel like, I believe that everything is on a spectrum, right? And on that spectrum, you can, it can be, nothing's totally bad or totally good, right? It falls somewhere in the middle. Sometimes it leans left or leans right, or etc. But having that open-mindedness and having curiosity, I think one of the best things that my father ever instilled in me was being curious. I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always prodding and poking and seeing what that can do or what that can see. And having that curiosity and that open-mindedness has allowed me to I feel, be pretty successful in life in general. We all have our ups and downs, but not, I don't serve to criticize people. I want to understand and be able to help people. And I think when it comes to this space specifically, it's about having that open mind. It's about doing the research. It's about saying, okay, let's see how this can actually work. And instead of, trying to knock it down, maybe bring our expertise to bear and ask ourselves, how can we make it better? And I think that's a better approach.
How can we make it better? Absolutely. I try to look at my own intentions at times. It's part of the human condition to get mad or have an impulse at something. But why? Why look at it in a polarizing fashion, whether it's an internal discussion or anything in our day-to-day lives, right. And have that open mind, be committed to the goals and whatever it takes to get there.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Well, Sam, thanks so much for coming in today. If anyone wants to get in touch with you, maybe continue this conversation one-on-one, what is your preferred channel? What's the best way for them to do so?
Email me. It's just sam@system9.io, just the number 9. So sam@system9.io is probably the easiest. You can find me on other outlets and whatnot, but business requests or inquiries or even, anything, that's probably the best manner.
Absolutely. And Sam has very active channels. Definitely recommend getting in touch with him, following him, seeing him, all the exciting things that he does, both professionally and beyond. And encourage you to take him up on that invite. Sam, thanks again for being here. Listeners, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Jason, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Take care.
Take care.